Everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. This is the monthly chart of Clean Spark, ticker symbol CLSK. There are a few warning signs I want to talk to you about in terms of I think we're getting close to some pretty important resistance. And I think that things may be a little bit overextended. There might be some bearish divergences that I'm starting to see here. But I just wanted to share with you in the long run, meaning over the next 12 to 18 months potentially, I still see that Clean Spark has been doing very, very well. In the greater scheme of things, I don't really see any trend exhaustion. So, for example, if you look over at the RSI, I don't really see any kind of bearish divergences or anything like that. And it's barely just kind of getting overheated. It's kind of barely just getting a little bit overbought here. But I expect miners, once they really truly get overbought, like they can easily go up to like the 80s and 90s on the RSI on the monthly, and that wouldn't even phase me at all. I'm not seeing any bearish divergences here to tell me that the greater trend right here is bearish or is exhausting or anything like that. I'm just not seeing it. Now, with that said, there are a couple other things too on the greater scheme of things. On the higher time frame, if you just put the Bollinger Band, I mean, this is a very, very nice bull trend. There's a huge expansion of the Bollinger Band on the monthly here, and price would most likely continue to keep riding up on the upper Bollinger Band on the way up. And the other thing you see is that the 20-month moving average, which is just the median of the Bollinger Band right here, is very, very nicely pointing up. So there's a bull trend, and based on the monthly chart here, is accelerating. It's very much accelerating going up. And this is a very, very, very nice setup in terms of over the next 12 to 18 months or so. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be any significant pullback that sometimes can be pretty brutal for a lot of people that never really experienced. They just kind of bought in right here because they saw the price just kind of went up parabolic from here going on out. There could potentially be some pretty brutal pullbacks. For example, over here, that's pretty brutal, and all the way from you're talking about all the way from the top right here, which is around 11, going all the way down to you're talking about like $6.50. So there's also some potential pretty brutal pullbacks that can happen along the way here. But overall, the positive trend here in terms of the monthly, both in terms of Bollinger Band expansion, 20-month moving average pulling up, and also the fact that if you look at the Ichimoku cloud, a couple of very, very positive things that has been happening. One is the very bullish Tenkan Kijun cross, which tells you this might just be kind of like the early innings of the bull market, if you will, for Clean Spark on the monthly. The Tenkan line right here is leading usually, and the Kijun line right here is lagging. And when the leading line crosses above the lagging line, generally you have a bullish cross right here. Both of which, by the way, are going to serve as support from now on. And in addition to all that, I also wanted to pay attention to one thing that's very, very important, is that initially price last month got rejected from the Ichimoku cloud. This month we only have maybe another 2 trading days left. Right now the price has broken inside the Ichimoku cloud. It's always nice when you have a wick right here of rejection that got filled with a candle. This is a pretty bullish development in terms of the monthly chart right here. So all those are very, very positive things, right? So what do I mean by trend exhaustion and things like that? Like, what do you mean by bearish divergence? What do you mean by things to kind of watch out for? One thing here is I just want to point out is that the level that we're at right now, bearish point number one, the level that we're at right now has some history to it in terms of it being resistance. For example, last month, the level we're at right now is exactly the level that we got rejected last month. Last month, the candle went as far as 23.45. And that's the highest of the wick right here. Right now, we're kind of getting rejected right around the same level over here. In addition, the very same level had also been previously back tested, back in a very, very bad parabolic downtrend in around 2021 on November. It did a little bit of a back test right here, and he basically got rejected at this level. If you also look at a volume shelf over here, you can also see the volume shelf. Yeah, you still have a pretty decent volume shelf over here around the 23s, high 23s or so. And there's a potential this could still serve as resistance, and you might end up still having to go down a little bit. How far? I don't know. Could it go down as far as the bottom of the cloud over here, back test the cloud before going up higher, which is around 17 or 18? That's always a possibility. Once price entered the cloud, there's a tendency for it to maybe, kind of go around here a little bit, but the magnet tends to be the top of the cloud after it enters the cloud. Now, is it going to be top of the cloud over here in the 70s? Is it going to just kind of go sideways and hit the top of the cloud in 40? Nobody really knows. But once it enters the cloud, and if it's pretty much confirmed that there's an entrance of the cloud, price generally enter, and it generally likes to have the magnet kind of go up to the outer side. And the other side could certainly serve as resistance. But with that said, you're still at this horizontal resistance here. We still haven't broken above that. So I don't want to just get you super bullish. I don't want you to do anything crazy, super over leverage or anything like that, even though it broke inside the cloud. This is more of a positive development for the longer term trend. It doesn't necessarily mean that short term you can just do whatever you want and expect not to lose 30 to 50% of your money, which is always a possibility, although I do think that we have pretty decent support down here at the volume shelf, and I think that once it's able to break above the volume shelf around 23, 24 or so, I think things are going to get pretty bullish, but I'm just not sure if it's necessarily going to get right up there. But again, warning sign number one is just hitting resistance that has some price history here and there. Even though it's inside the cloud, I'm holding, I'm not selling, I also am not buying at this point. I'm just going to keep holding what I have. I'm happy about my position. If it goes down, back test some of these things below, that's fine. If it keeps going up, I'm okay too. I'm happy where I'm at. The key thing though is be a little bit cautious at resistance. Don't just lay your hopes up, if you will. If I end up being surprised, great. I have a pretty decent position in CleanSpark. I'll be very happy. If not, that's okay too. The key thing is, in addition to looking at the horizontal resistance, is thing number one. Thing number two, I also want to bring to your attention is that as price starts to get a little bit far from the Tenkan, the red line right here, as price gets a little bit farther from Tenkan, and right now if you look at the Tenkan number is actually going to be around 13.76. Right now price is at 23. The Tenkan down here is 13. So that's pretty far away from a pretty important support area right here. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to go all the way back down to test it now. Most likely, price might end up fluttering here, have some volatility before going up again. But there's always a possibility where price just keeps on going up, dragging the Tenkan along to get up with it, and then at some point back test it. So you just don't want to just look below Tenkan and say that yes, it has to go back down. Yes, I'm not going to buy until price drops down to 13 or something like that. And that's not necessarily a reasonable strategy or anything like that either. Now, but one thing is, again, horizontal resistance. The second thing is the further away from the Tenkan, the red line right here, the more risk you might have. It's just, it's just further away from its key support. So you might not having risk, and the risk can get higher and higher and higher, and the price can get further and further away from the Tenkan. But right now, it's a little bit far. I don't really like it as much. But still, there's something to watch out for. Now, the other thing too, I also want to point out is if you look at the Bollinger Band, it's pretty far out away from the Bollinger Band right now. The Bollinger Band right now is at 16.38. Price right now is at 23.19. Can price keep going up? Sure. Last month, you had price went way above the upper Bollinger Band, and up, bringing back down to gravity. The time before that, you also end up having a candle that's way up the upper Bollinger Band, and you end up having a pretty bad, very bearish January month that brings it all the way back down to reality inside the Bollinger Band. So we're starting to get a little bit overextended. The entire candle is actually, the entire candle right now is actually above the upper Bollinger Band because we opened the month at 16.72. And the upper Bollinger Band is 16.36. So the entire candle right here is above the upper Bollinger Band. So it's getting a little bit far out there. There might be traders that see this and say, yeah, I think it's a little bit too far to overextend it. Maybe we need to kind of bring it down to earth a little bit, bring it back down into the upper Bollinger Band, while wait for time for the upper Bollinger Band to continue to expand, allowing the price to go up higher, because right now it's going to still serve it a little bit as a magnet. Now, the month only has 2 more days left in terms of trading. I think that most likely price do end up closing pretty much above the upper Bollinger Band. And next month, you never know. You might end up having some sideways, or you can just keep going parabolic. I mean, I have no idea what to expect necessarily. I just wanted to kind of point this out based on what I'm seeing previously, and just based on technical analysis in general. Like, things are a little bit overextended. time to be a little bit cautious, not to over leverage. It's okay to hold your position because the primary trend is still very, very bullish. But these are, this is another warning sign here. Again, so far we have getting above the, getting into this resistance zone right here, where there's some price history can serve as resistance. It's getting a little bit above the Bollinger Band. It's getting a little bit too far away from the Tenkan. I mean, it's also a little bit far away from the 20-month moving average, but that I'm not as worried about. I think that the bull trend can keep going. It can get a lot further from the 20-month moving average. That I'm not really too concerned about. I'm more worried about the upper Bollinger Band. I generally don't like price getting too far above the upper Bollinger Band if you can help it. Just to kind of give you an example, if you look at Bitcoin, look at what it did on some of the previous bull markets. Let's look at the bull market like from 2017 all the way to 2018 here. Whenever you get price above the upper Bollinger Band on the monthly, you tend to get some pretty brutal pullback. Same here, you have the month that's going up, pretty brutal pullback. Month that's going up, have a candle right here is way outside upper Bollinger Band, and you end up just kind of going sideways, actually wicked down pretty badly the month after that. Same thing happened over here, right? You have a band that's all the way up here, pretty brutal wick all the way down. Eventually still end up closing above the upper Bollinger Band. But you can see what I'm talking about. I think we're entering a little bit of a risky area here when it comes to the monthly chart of CleanSpark, because price is just simply maybe a little bit overextended, although things can go irrationally for a lot longer than we expect. But, it's something to keep in mind. Now, let's look at the weekly. Right now, if you look at monthly, I'm not really seeing any bearish divergence with the RSI, and even the open volume, the unbalanced volume. It's also just basically showing there's a lot of increase in volume of buying. So as we knew that already, if you just look at the volume here over the last few months, it's just been pretty parabolic in terms of buy volume. Just keeps on going up. So a lot of money has already been pulled in terms of from whales, and they're probably going to end up riding it up, and the volume could potentially continue to go down as we melt up, because the majority of whales probably already in at this point. But it doesn't guarantee that you're not going to have any pullback just because whales are in. If you look at the weekly, though, is when you start to see a little bit of a problem. Now, no problem so far in terms of making these higher highs and higher lows, higher high, higher low, higher high right here. It could go back down here at any point to make a higher low. It doesn't have to. It can keep going up and then make a higher low up here somewhere. But one thing to kind of be a little bit more cautious about the weekly here is, if you look at, you draw a line right there, if you look at the RSI, you're actually going to see a bit of a bearish diversion that's happening. As price goes up, RSI goes down. This is a bearish divergence that you're seeing, which means that you're starting to get a little bit exhausted on this bull trend right here. You can also tell that from the volume too, and the buying volume has been kind of going up. As price continue to kind of point up, you're starting to get a little bit of exhaustion of volume, going down here. And this is also showing here on RSI, which is basically a momentum indicator. In addition to seeing a bearish divergence, again, price can keep going up on bearish divergence. Don't get me wrong. Bearish divergence can keep going on and on and on, and the RSI can just keep going down, down, down. That doesn't really matter that much. But in addition to it being a bearish divergence, you're also seeing that right now, RSI is also hitting this resistance right here. Now, if it breaks above the resistance right here, that's another story. That means that price is going to break above this this line right here. If it breaks above this resistance right here and actually get above 80, which would be a very, very insane kind of bullishness that's going on in the weekly. But if it does that, then you're talking about having a very, very parabolic bull trend and just keeps going up. Right? I never want to be too bullish when it comes to RSI already hitting resistance. Price is also hitting a little bit of resistance here. I'm not surprised at all if it pulls down from a higher low. I'm not even surprised if it goes down to like 17 or even lower levels. I'm not surprised by that at all. It doesn't really bother me all that much. If it goes down, I keep buying. I mean, if you're going to give me that higher low right here on a parabolic bull trend, I keep buying, But I can see it potentially going down to 17 because of some of the things I'm seeing here. It doesn't have to. There's always a potential where April is going to be a month where IWM has just been waiting to breakout. And if it does that, I have a hard time seeing CleanSpark not breaking out, but it can actually potentially break out of this RSI. I don't know which one's going to happen. There are two scenarios. At this point, risks are getting a little bit higher because of various divergence, because of some of the other things I was showing you on the monthly. I actually don't know what's going to happen. Which one is going to be? I do not know. This is the moment where I hold because I do not know, and I want the trend to just do its thing on the short term, but the longer term trend is still very bullish, both on the monthly and weekly. I don't really care about these like plus or minus 30% moves. I really don't care. But I do want to point out a couple warning signs here, just in case if you're not, one of those people who have paid attention. Now, that's enough warning sign for CleanSpark. I want to talk about a couple other bullish things here. Ichimoku Cloud on the weekly. You can see very clearly that the weekly Tenkan has served as support for 3 weeks in a row, and when it serves as support, price got rewarded, bounced up. Pretty nice bull market behavior here. If you look at other charts, you can see that usually if price bounces from the weekly Tenkan go up, that's usually a pretty bullish indicator that you have a pretty nice weekly bull trend that's going on. Now, in addition to Ichimoku Cloud, I'm also going to pull up, bull market support band. It's also another reason why I think risk has been a little bit elevated, because price is still pretty much far above the upper Bollinger Band. Ideally, you like to kind of see it upper Bollinger Band as it goes up to be pretty good, support, bounce up and keep going up, bounce up and keep going up. It doesn't have to do that. In a parabolic bull trend, price can just keep going up way higher, not touch the bull market support band for a while and just try to drag it up along with it, eventually touch it to service support, but you don't know when that's going to be. Regardless, I also want to show you that there's no dispute at all at this point that there is a full bull trend on the weekly. 20 moving average, over 50 moving average, or 100 moving average. This is a very, very nice weekly bull trend. I have no question that it's going to break above this volume shelf over here eventually. I just don't know if it's going to be next week. It's always possible. I'm not betting against it. I'm also not doing anything, irresponsible by over leveraging at this point. I'm just going to let it ride. And if it keeps going up, great. If it ends up hitting some resistance here because it's a little bit too far from the monthly, how do you say that? It's a little bit too far from the monthly support, include upper Bollinger Band, tuning up the monthly Tenkan, and it's also hitting some horizontal resistance here. I just wanted to be a little bit cautious. That's all. Now, if you also look at the L3 banker fund flow trend oscillator from Black Hat to see what the big money is doing, they're entering. I think they've been entering for really over the whole year and a half. They've been entering. I think right here is probably more like a reaccumulation range. At some point, I think this is probably best illustrated on the monthly. The inflow has just been absolutely insane because of the volume. Inflow has just been absolutely insane. Like whales, if they haven't entered before, they've entered now. And because of this very, very much insane kind of increase in inflow, I think that most likely price will continue to go up. Now, it's not fair to look at CleanSpark compared to the previous cycle because they didn't really become a miner until December 2020. So I'm actually going to ignore everything that's before that. And also having inflow doesn't necessarily mean that price is going up. That's another thing. Having inflow can actually happen with price going down pretty parabolic too. But it's a little bit different in terms of this parabolic inflow. Something's happening here. Whales are noticing something here. And I think that because of this increase in big money, I think they're preparing for some pre-parabolic move going up. And I think the trend is just now starting. I think we're still at the early to mid areas of the innings, if you will. So we'll see what happens. The volume has been very, very, very nicely pushing up. The whole trend has been very, very bullish. We'll see what happens. It's getting close to 20 minutes. I gave you my warning signs on CleanSpark, and I also gave you my overall thought on the longer term trend. I'm not selling out of it. Some people might be selling out of it based on what they see. Some people might even get frustrated with Bitfarms and with Mara, and they might be selling out of that and buying clean spark to chase momentum. I wouldn't do that right at resistance. I wouldn't do that when you have a weekly, bearish divergence. But there's no right strategy. There's only your strategy. And you don't really learn how to make money until you start to lose money. That's kind of the way that it goes. Anyway, thank you for listening. Have a good one. Bye.